Hello, here I am with my 40-day fast experience. So I recently did a video on my 40-day fast testimony that was such an encouragement to you. And I got a lot of questions in the comment section about how I did it and if I could give tips and tricks and other things. So here is a video of my 40-day fast experience. And I'll do a second video with technicalities, I guess, of like what it's like being around people eating and you're not, and things that I would do differently. So this is just my experience and the journey that I went through in the 40 days. So first of all, as I mentioned in the other video, it was definitely spirit led. I didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, this year on my New Year's resolution list, I will do a 40-day fast and I must succeed and prosper. That's not how it happened at all. I actually did not know I was going to do it when the year started. It wasn't those like pre-planned, premeditated kinds of stuff. I was just moving with God on it. And how I even got the number 40, you can check it out in the video about the 40-day fast testimony right here. So first of all, it was spirit led. We've gotten that out of the way. I started the fast with this mentality that I would, I have to do this, I have to get this done. And I was super like, I will succeed. I did not start pre-plan it or premeditate it, but once I knew I was doing it, I was like, I'm not quitting on this. Even if I will die doing it, I must succeed. So I'm not saying that's a good attitude to have, and God corrected it pretty quick. By week 1, it was gone. I started the fast knowing I'm going to do water only for 40 days, and I was like super pumped. I was like, not by power, by might, but by His Spirit. Like, yes. So I started it out that way, and I quickly came to realize how easy it is to think you're doing something for God, or think you're not doing something for God, really, like you're honoring God in your mindset because it sounds Bible like or Christian like, but really at the end of it, there's this like self-reliance underneath. So I started with the water thing, and by the 4th day, I was not functional. I don't even know how I survived that long. I managed to do 4 days and 4 nights water only. I was getting muscle cramps. I could not move. I lost so much weight, which I came to realize was water because I was not hydrating enough. I could barely move. I'd just move and get a muscle pull all through my legs, my back. And I read somewhere like, oh, that's because of lack of sodium, Google generation. So I started putting iodized salt in my water, and my oh my, did that not increase the heartburn? I felt like I was dying. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't talk. I literally wrote a whole lamentations by myself in one night. I was venting, ranting to God. I woke up the next day. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I spoke to you in that manner, but oops, it was in the middle of the night. So I had to adjust. And I got to this point where I couldn't move. I would literally like walk 2 steps and I would be panting, like heaving because I'm so weak. I can barely function. And my focus had now completely shifted from praying and hearing God. And I was just like, God, I'm tired. I have muscle cramps. I have ABCD. And something that someone had told me when the fast was beginning was I need to be open to adjusting. But Rehema here was determined to do a water fast. And I got to this point when I was now beginning my 5th day, because I started my fast at night. So I would finish the night and then the day, the night and the day. So at the end of the 4th day and the 4th night, the 4th night and the 4th day, when I was now starting my 5th day in the night, I just had the Lord tell me to take an orange, and I was like I needed to suck. I couldn't move, guys, at all. And I remember just thinking, no, if I do that, I've failed. And now the conversation began, like, failed in whose eyes? like, what? And I started realizing that I had set a goal in my mind to do it one way. And I was not willing to adjust. I was thinking, if I don't do it this way, I have failed. It has to look this way. And I started seeing there was a lot of self-reliance in that, a lot of self-righteousness. I must do it now. I was reliant on my own strength. And now in that first week of my fast, it was something that God was dealing with. There is this scripture, I think in Psalm, it says, I humble myself before the Lord with a fast. And one thing I will tell you, fasting will humble you. If it's a way of humbling yourself. Actually, a lot of the scriptures tell us to humble ourselves. So we humble ourselves, and one of the ways we humble ourselves before God is to fast. And it really, really humbled me. And I got to that point where I was like, okay, so I had completely moved my focus off of you, and now my focus was on this goal that I had set, and I don't want to adjust. I don't want to be flexible. And guys, I sucked on an orange because my stomach was so small I couldn't actually eat one by that time. And 5 minutes later, I was singing hymns. Oh, and I remember having a conversation with God, like, oh my gosh, am I so like carnal? I just had like a taste of food and suddenly I'm praising you again. What is wrong with me? But I'll speak on that as we move. It was very humbling to stop relying on myself, and I started seeing how when we rely on ourselves, we fail because we cannot do the things of the Spirit in our own strength, because they are Spirit-led and they are achieved in the Spirit and in the Lord. So if God asks you to do something, but you don't want to do it with God's help, you end up striving. You're not moving with grace. You're moving with your own grace, with your own strength, and it runs out. You will get to the end of yourself pretty quick. And I think it's something that God had to get rid of, or the fasting got rid of. God just got rid of it. The self-reliance, the kind of self-righteousness, like if I don't do it this way, I have failed. That's self-righteousness. I was looking to get righteousness from me achieving this goal. It was no longer righteousness from God. It was, if I am doing this, I'm going to get it done. So God really had to get rid of that. And the first week of my fast was really, I think, humbling to my spirit and my entire being. And I was able to now move forward to the rest of my fast with a better attitude. So that would be the first thing, because there were lots of questions on how do I do this, or how shouldn't I do this. I really want to do this, but I start and I keep failing. And it's just move with God's adjustments, move with God's time, get the number of days. Like, is it a 3-day fast, 7-day fast, 5-day fast, 21 days, 40 days, and move with God's timing on it. So there was that. And then the second thing I think I did happened during the fast. So I'll just give a disclaimer before we move through these videos. I don't want you to look at my journey and expect yours to look the same way, because that might inhibit the move of God in your life, or the move of God will happen, but you might miss it. This is just my story and how it happened for me. So to keep some form of sanity, I guess, I started asking God, how will you divide my fast? So instead of looking at it as one long 40-day journey, to look at it like in phases, like phase 1, this happened, phase 2, this happened, phase 3, this happened. And another thing is, after I stopped doing the water only, I would have like a saucer of veggies. I've spoken a little bit about this in the my deliverance healing testimony video, which you'll find here again. But I used to have a saucer in the evening, And how I chose to do mine, because it was still a 40-day fast, I didn't look at it as, oh, I'm breaking the fast every evening. It was part of the fast. So I would still fast and pray and commune with God, and I would actually put a plate of, or the saucer of whatever it is, whatever veggies I was having, or whatever it is I was having. I'd put a saucer down and I'd tell God, like, okay, let's sit and dine together. So it wasn't really like I'm breaking my fast in the evening and I can eat what I want all night, then in the morning we start over. It was more of like a continuum or a continuous process. So I'd sit, we'd eat, and then we continue praying and listening and seeking God and relaxing and all that. We would move with that later. So with that being said, I looked at it in like phases, and my fast looked like it, I came to see it was almost in 8 5-day phases. So now the first phase is when all that humbling took place, the day 1 to 5. And day 6, I noticed there was a lot of healing. With regards to former pain I had had, I started getting perspective on certain things that had happened in the past, perspective on a breakup I had gone through, perspective on just different things. There was a relationship, or rather a friendship relationship. It's not non-romantic relationship that was healed in that process. One day I was just having my time with God, and I just felt like, oh yeah, that anger and hurt I had just kind of left. So the second phase of my fast was kind of like healing, and not physical healing, but more of healing of relationships and my mindsets towards certain things and the hurts that I was having. So that was my experience there. Another thing that happened is I was journaling every day, or I tried to journal every day. I think out of the 40 days, I probably journaled maybe 37 or 36. I actually finished this entire journal, my journal book. I think I finished it and started another one. I just sit down and write and sit down and write. And when I was preparing for this video, actually, which is something I would advise you to do, journal when you're fasting. Just sit down, and you might not think that especially if you're not someone who journals, you might not think that what you're writing matters. But when I was looking at the things I wrote, when I was doing this fast, they're speaking to me today, and they're very prophetic into where I'm headed. So when I was just writing them down, they seemed like nice words, and I was like, oh, okay, let me just write this down, see how it goes. But the things I wrote then are very applicable to my life now and where I'm going, and I'm like, whoa, it's as if they are personalized for me. So when I was writing them, they were ahead of their time, but the time for them will come. Like I would actually keep referencing these things that I wrote as a blueprint for where I'm going. I'll keep checking. I read it and it was such an encouragement to me, and I would tell you to journal. Yes, journal, journal, journal. And some of the things that also, I read my Bible every day as well. It's very important to read your Bible, or you're just hungry for nothing. Because I was also just taking water pretty much full time, just water, then the time in the evening where I would have the saucer and just dine with God and then go back to water. And that's how I did it. And of course I adjusted it a bit with the veggies. Not like I was just having like spinach every day for 40 days. No, there was like sometimes I'd add cashews, sometimes I'd add courgettes, and funny thing, because I think I was not doing it in my own strength and I would just listen. That's how I even discovered the allergies I was having were going, when one day I was just seated down and I just said, like, put an egg today. I'm like, what? I was like, okay, I'll trust you, and put an egg and see what happens. So the amazing thing is when people eat vegetables only for a really long time, you can get diarrhea. If we're being honest, I did not experience that even one time during the 40 days at all. So that I am grateful for. I might have gotten muscle cramps and fatigue. I napped every day. Um, yes, that's the thing I did every day. I took a nap because your body just kind of starts shutting down. At some point you wake up, it's water, it's just water, water, water. Oh yeah, sometimes I'd have some coconut water, but it's not helping much. It's just water, it just passes through. So because you're not really eating regularly, your body just kind of needs a nap, just an hour a day or two. Because I was working from home full time, I was able to slow down my work and just focus on seeking God. And at the time of my life, it was a season where I could actually just slow everything down and focus on God. And sometimes you need to do that. Another thing is somewhere in between, like around day 17, between day 17 and day 23, something happened, and I remember I was really annoyed and really irritated, like level 9 annoyance and irritation. And from the time I harbored that offense in my heart, I couldn't pray for around 3 days. I'd sit and try and I just couldn't pray. I was so angry. And around that time, somebody, see how people move with the spirit, somebody sent me a book called The Bait of Satan by John Bevere, and I read it. It's basically a book about offense, and I saw how offense can really prevent someone from hearing God or being able to pray. It's a very spiritual thing. And one thing, when you're fasting, you're alert spiritually, more alert than usual. So I definitely noticed how it affected my prayer life, because I was like hearing God and doing all the things, which I'll speak about in like a few minutes. But I was hearing God and doing all the things, easy to worship, easy to pray. And then suddenly this offense just, I picked it up. The moment I picked that offense up, I couldn't pray. I was trying to read my Bible. I'm so angry. And I had to surrender because it was a bait I picked. The book, The Bait of Satan, basically talks about how offenses can inhibit us. Inhibit? Yes, from hearing God, from being able to pray, can inhibit the move of God. Because it opens up doors to things like spirits of pride and fault finding, resentment, hatred, all those things cloud. It's like God is trying to speak to you and there's so much noise and you're like trying to hear, but there's all this like stuff in the background, shuffling papers, and it clouds your hearing. So I had to let that go. I was like, God, you have to help me let this go, because I was so annoyed. Ugh. I was like, God, you have to help me let this go. And the moment I said that and the Lord actually helped me let it go, I was able to journal again and pray again. That's why I said out of the 40 days, I probably journaled 30 something. There's that time when I was angry that I could not be able to function very well in terms of prayer and listening and reading the word and understanding. So I would advise you to avoid offenses. Another thing I think that I would do differently, or that happened to me, I was so focused. I was so activity minded. And this is something that God has continued to graciously work with me after. I was so activity minded, such that I would have encounters with God and I'm there with my pen and paper like, what are we writing? Is it a prophecy? You know, the way you sometimes as a Christian you get into this mood where you're just binding and claiming and declaring and decreeing and being all like, hallelujah, we're doing this, we're taking this. And I forgot that we have a relationship with God, and sometimes God just comes to me to hang out. There's no really, important oracle to note down or something to declare and decree or somebody to pray for, something to bind. Sometimes God just comes to chill. And I was in this like go, 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 do, almost like it's work, showing up for work mindset, that I forgot to just enjoy. I think the presence of God. Yes, it's good to journal and all that, but sometimes God will show up. You'll have encounters with God where you're not really expected to write anything down or hear anything. You're like, okay, so what do you want to say? Say it quick. Like, I'm ready, I'm hearing, I'm here. Sometimes God just comes to chill with you. And I could not compute that in my mind. Like, okay, so you're here. Yes, I'm listening. Here I am. Send me. What do you need? I'm ready. So just getting out of that mindset with God and just sometimes showing up to enjoy each other's company. You're not coming together to do stuff. You're just being together. So I wish I was together with God more often. I still had those encounters with God, but I forgot to dwell in the presence, to dwell in the secret place, and just to do that. I was like, what are we doing? Where are we going? Let's do this, instead of just being like, okay, so I have nothing to say to you. You have no oracles to say to me. Let's just sit down and maybe giggle and laugh. So I wish I did that more. What else? Yeah, I think that's what I'll share for now. The others will be in the other video, or this will end up being a movie. It will be 2 hours long. So the rest of the technical stuff like adjusting and the what I personally read or what I personally did will be in another video, but after this it will be uploaded, literally the video after this one. But that was basically my experience. Just, I think, moving, the greatest shift that happened within me, other than the things I was fasting for, which I haven't mentioned. There's 3 things that I had been led to fast about specifically. So other than the revelations I got in those 3 things, the deliverance I got there, the healings and all that, other than those beautiful things that happened, the shift that happened in my life was a reliance off of my time, a reliance off of my method and doing things my way and or in my own strength. And I started learning to follow God. I think is the hugest thing I learned, to just move with God, not rely on my own strength, not being like, I have a goal and I will achieve it, which is self-righteousness, and I will do it no matter what it takes. Even if I will die trying, I will have succeeded. That had to die. We had to crucify that part of my flesh, like go away, because I was exchanging God's sacrifice and God's grace, because we live and exist off of grace, and I was trying to somehow get this favor and have, I finished a fast. I can't even stand and be like, oh, I finished a fast, because I know I didn't do that in my own strength. It's not, if I had ended with the attitude I began with, it would have been something, put on my wall, I finished this. And that already shows somebody's heart posture and mindset towards fasting and all that. So I normally just look at it like, yeah, that one time I did a 40-day, it really was that one time I did a 40-day fast, and wow, like God really showed up. These are the things that happened. You'll notice in my videos there's nothing like I did it. When I finished, I was like, oh, God, we did it. Like, I could not have done this without you, really. I can't even believe we've made it this far. It's 30 days. How? When it was starting, I was like, it's so far. And when it was ending, I found myself telling my family, I I don't know how I'll go back to eating 3 meals a day. Like, this is so weird. I've already gotten used to it's so beautiful. I no longer want to kind of like go back. So that shift was really, really important and really, really cool. And just also the things I wrote down, obviously, but moving from relying on myself to relying on God. I forgot the other things I was to say. Yeah, if I remember before the video ends, well and good. But I hope this was an encouragement to you, um, to just seek God, write stuff down. Please write things down. Take time to pray every day. And on a physical level, make adjustments so that your fast doesn't become about you lamenting because you still live in a body of how tired you are and how sleepy you are and how hungry you are and how you have heartburn and you can't breathe and you can't move and you can't function so much that instead of killing the flesh, it's actually being elevated and you're not really making progress. So make adjustments, take a nap when you need to. um, Feel free to adjust when you need to adjust your meal plan or something, so that you're still very much focused on God and you're not really focused on, oh, I should have, I finished the 40 kilometers, but there's a spot I walked. Yeah, sometimes you'll finish the race and walk somewhere. Sometimes you'll sit in somewhere, it's not, oh, I ran consistently every day. That's not the focus of any kind of a fast. So there was also that shift. Yeah, so that was my experience. Avoid offenses. Oh yeah, yes, how I prepared for the fast. That should also be the other video. That's super, super important. The books I read. You can read different books, but super important. So see you in the next video. I hope this was an encouragement to you. Bye.